The good lawyers can think logically, can find issues. And so they're going to need to both rely on and trust people like you
Yeah.
to say, think about the customer experience and how can we make that better?
Yep. Yeah. And that comes down to human-centered design thinking, right? And so I think because of the way lawyers tend to think, it is a more natural bridge to a human-centered design thinking process. And so when we think of that human-centered design thinking, what we want to do is we want to understand the problem, understand the people and how the people interact with it, and then start crafting a solution, experiment, and iterate. And so we go through this process, and it's one of the things that I do not feel, to your point earlier, I am not the best person at it. I've learned how to run a business. We have people on our team, and they are human-centered design thinkers.
Welcome to the Renegade Lawyer Podcast, the show where we ask the questions, why aren't more lawyers living flourishing lives and inspiring others? And can you really get wealthy while doing only the work you love with people you like? Many lawyers are. Get ready to hear from your host, Ben Glass, the founder of the law firm Ben Glass Law in Fairfax, Virginia, and Great Legal Marketing, an organization that helps good people succeed by coaching, inspiring, and supporting law firm owners. Join us for today's conversation.
Hey everyone, this is Ben Glass. Welcome back to the Renegade Lawyer Podcast, where I get to interview people inside and outside the legal profession who are making a ding in the world. Today's a very special edition, talking to my friend Chip LaFleur, because just recently, I think within the last 90 or 120 days at Ben Glass Law, we relaunched our website and we used Chip and his company to do that. LaFleur Marketing, or I'm not even sure, is it LaFleur Web Marketing or LaFleur Marketing? You guys are doing so many things.
Marketing.
Yeah. And Chip and I had met many years ago. We came to a Great Legal Marketing Conference, sort of kept in touch and got reconnected recently. So I want to talk about, Chip, your journey, what y'all are doing, because you're a businessman too. Before we went live, you told me you acquired another company. I'm like, sounds like you have too much time on your hands. But what I'm going to talk about, I'm running a law firm. I'm running Great Legal Marketing. It's challenging. It has high highs and low lows. So, but we're glad to be partnering up with you with our Ben Glass Law web properties. And dude, it's been a while since you and I talked directly. So how you doing?
I'm doing great. And, we were just touching on a minute ago how, going to that Great Legal Marketing Conference for me was the thing that helped us kick off. So we incorporated in 2015 as LaFleur Marketing, and all we had was 2 clients, and we were going to go out and try to do something. And by we, I mean me, because it was just me.
Yeah.
And I went to your conference, and it opened up my eyes to marketing automation, the importance of email newsletters, the importance of newsletters in general. And I thought, man, this makes a lot of sense. And so we built a lot of our company around that. We started out with SharpSpring. We moved into a combination of SharpSpring and HubSpot now to do some of those things. But, I think it's so fun to talk to you about this, because that initial conference just set us in the right direction. And now we're about 45 people. We've got clients all over the country. And if we hadn't kicked off and done some things right in the first place, we wouldn't have done any of that. Most businesses go out in the first year or two. So we were able to make it through that. So
one of the stories I tell at my conferences is when my wife Sandy and I went to a parenting conference to help with some of the challenges that we encountered when we started to adopt children. And, it's like you can go to a 3-day conference, but you hear one line, one speaker that can change the trajectory of your life. And so fortunately for me, I've got either conferences or people that have come into my life. There's probably about 5 significant moments in my life where my trajectory of my whole life changed. And so you just never know what you're going to hear, but I'm glad to hear that you were there in 2015. And now let's catch up, because we're recording this near the end of 2023. It's mid-November. And tell us a little bit about the universe of LaFleur. You mentioned clients all over the country and 45 people under roof, which again, just that, 45 people under roof is, man, I'm curious now about your management style and habits and stuff like that too.
Oh man. So we kicked off. So we started growing kind of, I'd say, using pretty traditional management styles and structures, with the exception that, I'm a big believer in treating people like adults. And, for me, having that life experience to be able to do the things that are important to you which I know is something that I read from your material all the time, but people should have time for their kids. People should have time to live their lives. And, I run a business, and so I have that freedom. I want the people who work for me to have that freedom too. And so we started to grow. Initially, we all worked remotely. And then eventually we got big enough. We felt like we needed an office. We got in the office. But when we did that, when that was 2016, I think, we never had a requirement to work in the office. And so it was so easy for us to recruit talent because people could work in the office. They could work from home. We were able to dip into talent pools like moms with young children who are wildly capable, wildly talented, incredible experience. And they would be bypassed for roles because they had to pick up their kids from school or because, they had to be able to be flexible with their daycare. And so that opened up this pool of talent in the industry that we were able to tap into. I think to this day, we're still probably 60% female across the organization. And, it's not through discriminatory practice by any stretch. It's just that different people have different needs in their lives. And so we grew, we got to about 20 people, and then we started to try to introduce middle management, and that became a challenge. We went through the process of going through kind of an EOS structure. We did that through the state of Michigan. They were very helpful there. Started to get better at how we conducted our meetings and how we ran a business. Went through the EMIS, to start developing standard operating procedures. And then I read a book called Corporate Rebels, written by these two guys. I think they're from the Netherlands. And I ran across an article in Harvard Business Review that they wrote. And throughout that book, it's not really a way to run a business, but it's a series of case studies of organizations like Patagonia and Spotify, Netflix, that have been disruptive, but that have been able to maintain their growth. And the premise behind all of that, which I think aligns with a lot of what I hear from you, is, you have to treat people like people. You have to build trust. You have to instill and lead with your values, and be mission driven. And so if you can do that, you can create what we call a team of teams, and you can have those teams understand the direction, and they don't need that micromanagement. And so as a result, we've been able to largely eliminate that management structure. And those teams are largely kind of self-reliant with almost an inverted pyramid where we are servicing those teams. Those teams are our clients, the leadership's team's clients. And so when they need us, they can come to us and we'll always help them. But it's not us sitting here telling them what to do. It's saying, here's where we want to go. How do we help you get there?
Well, exactly right. So being clear on that part, which is here's where we want to go.
Yep.
And then as leader being humble and brave enough to say, and I don't know exactly how we get there or in what steps, or I'm not the one to solve all of that.
Yeah.
But then filling your team with people who like the mission. So we call it hiring for the mission, not the position. Like they get behind LaFleur Marketing or Ben Glass Law or Great Legal Marketing, like what we are trying to do in those businesses, and then unleash them. So that's cool. The other thing that we are kind of known for now, and I learned this, I think, through our EOS coaches, is asking, so Chip, if you were working for me, I would be constantly asking, like, how can I make this perfect for you?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, look, Chip, I don't know that I can make it perfect, but if you don't know what's perfect,
right,
and you can't communicate to me what's perfect, then we can't work towards it.
Right.
And that's a profoundly, you have to be brave because you have to be willing to at least listen to the answer to the question.
Yep.
So it sounds like you've built something very neat. So give me some sense, how many, are you only in the law firm space now in terms of marketing?
No, we're not. So on the marketing side, we've really delineated into professional services as our primary focus. And so we're split probably about 50-50 between legal and then other professional services. And those professional services usually include financial service, insurance, medical, areas that are highly regulated. And what I found is in my own experience working for various agencies, we chase anything, right? And at one point in time, we had an aluminum extrusion manufacturing company. We had a beverage company that made fruit juices. We had an environmental engineering company. And our team did not understand how those ecosystems worked.
Yeah.
You sell extrusion equipment at conferences all across the globe. You need to know FDA rules for the labeling for a fruit juice. Well, you can't be an expert across everything. So we really leaned in heavily across healthcare and legal at first. And then that grew to include consulting. And so the way that our business is kind of structured is we do a lot of strategic work for some bigger organizations, for some enterprise organizations where we really get embedded and gain a deep expertise in what they're doing. And then we help guide them, especially even to and including new product development, new offering development. And then on the legal side, we take some of those learnings and we take those workshops and we say, okay, we learned this from this experience. How can we bring this to the legal team? Because that's the other half of the business. And they function differently, but the teams are made up of different people and each team can specialize and learn. And that's been a good model for us.
Give me some sense of how many law firm clients or websites, if there's multiple sites and firms that you guys have under your umbrella.
I mean, we've built hundreds of websites. I think at a
Yeah.
given time, we probably are hosting 50 to 80. And then on the enterprise side, those are much deeper engagements. And so we always only have a few, maybe it's 2 or 3, but if we go too much more broadly than that, it's hard to get that sort of expertise that we need to be able to really do the work there.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be almost absurdly crazy to try to be good at even what you're doing sounds like that's a wide stretch from the left hand to the right hand. So let's talk for a bit about web marketing in particular for lawyers. I think it still perplexes us, as I've told you, many times now in the recent past, as a consumer, as a buyer of web services who feels he's relatively sophisticated about marketing, I found the decision-making process to be challenging.
Yep.
Because everybody we talked to was good, of course. Everybody pretty much kind of promises the same sort of product.
Yeah.
And I found as a consumer, it was very hard to differentiate at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think it gets back to what we teach lawyers is that people buy from people they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
And then hope that the product will be as good as the know, like, and trust part of it. So I'm curious about what you all are doing at LaFleur when you're being approached by a lawyer who's looking to change, or even just asking the question, like, could you just look at my site and tell me, what I can do to make it better? Like, what are you pitching as, hey, LaFleur, you should strongly consider LaFleur because.
Yep. No, it's a great question. So, and it's a question where the answer I think is going to be changing very soon. So our approach historically has been to build on WordPress because it gives the law firm the largest pool of developers that they can pull in. And so I think it's always important to have an exit plan when it comes to your website. So number one, the law firm needs to own all the IP. They need to own the domains. They need to have a mechanism to take over hosting if they want to. So we host a lot for our clients, but because it's on WordPress, because they have the keys, they can take it and they can go. And I like WordPress because that's the biggest developer pool. You can find local developers who can come in and help you fix things, and you can navigate that on your own if you want, or you can go with an agency. So historically, that's what we've done, built on WordPress, looking at portfolio, asking for, their current sites that are in the same price range, when you're quoting out, and then taking those sites to experiencing the load time, experiencing what that looks like when you load a page, what kind of thought process went there, and then going to Google PageSpeed Insights, loading what they built into Google PageSpeed Insights. And if you can get past just their flagship sites, but ask for 5 or 6 of them, then usually you'll start to get into depth and you'll start to see, okay, this site is passing core web values. This one's not, if they're in the 80s and 90s in terms of page speed on mobile specifically, then you're probably dealing with somebody who's got a good handle on what they're doing. Where that is, I think, going to change very soon, it's just having a conversation with a strategist here in Grand Rapids, but where we're going to start seeing change is the creative elements and the creative energy and hours is the thing that is going to start to be the only thing that the law firm really is going to have to pay for. Because the execution, the building, even the content development is going to become more and more AI driven. And so that's going to shift the focus and the importance to the strategic side and away from the development side, because it won't be long before you'll be able to spin up a website by creating a prompt and saying, here's what I want to build. So really investing in the thinking behind it and understanding the brand, the values, and then how to translate that. That's where I think the real value is going to come from. The deliverables, and even, and this is a hard thing for us to wrap our heads around. Our business has been built around generating content for years.
Yeah.
And that's going away, but the thinking has to remain. The strategy has to stay relevant.
For sure. I mean, the way we frame the issue, at Ben Glass Law, and then when I speak on stage at Great Legal Marketing, is at the end of the day, for many practices, for many practice areas, the consumer has had a sudden and unexpected need. You got a car accident, got arrested, spouses having an affair, just discovered it. And so now they weren't paying any attention at all to lawyer advertising at all last week. This week they are. And so how can we make, to the extent they're using digital to try to find us,
Yep.
even if a human mentions us and they come over to our web properties. And this is what I'm always like yelling at my team about. Like, what is the consumer experience?
Yeah.
When they get, so while the technical people talk about web page loading and, the colors and stuff, I'm like, all right, but if they push this button right here,
Yeah.
and they expect this to happen, is this actually happening?
Yeah.
Or are we confusing?
Yeah.
So we just had an interesting internal strategic meeting here because a very small part of our practice is paid consults and disability claims. So people who are thinking about going on disability, and yet all over the websites, pre-consult, and then finding out that some people who are having the customer experience were going free consult, but now you're selling me into a consult. Like, what the hell is that?
Right.
And
right.
so I said, oh, okay. Like dummy should have seen that. Not the web team, but me. I should have seen that. And now we're thinking, all right, so how do we first explain this on the web? How do we make that customer flow through the site make sense so we can sell more of these types of consults? So it's exactly what you're talking about here, which is the overall strategy. And the way you just put that, like pretty soon you'll be able to give a prompt and something's going to build your website. That sounds pretty scary to me. But more and more the differentiator is, all right, who's got a good strategy that stands out and is different from all these other lawyer websites that are out there? And how can we make, my son Brian puts this great, he says, how can we make dealing with us easy?
Yeah.
At least easier.
Yeah.
Right. And so I agree with you. Like that's where the money is going to be. I think most lawyers though are not trained in marketing or sales strategy at all.
Yep.
The good lawyers can think logically, can find issues. And so they're going to need to both rely on and trust people like you to say, think about the customer experience and how can we make that better?
Yep. Yeah. And it comes down to human-centered design thinking, right? And so I think because of the way lawyers tend to think, it is a more natural bridge to a human-centered design thinking process. And so when we think of that human-centered design thinking, what we want to do is we want to understand the problem, understand the people and how the people interact with it, and then start crafting a solution, experiment, and iterate. And so we go through this process, and it's one of the things that I do not feel, to your point earlier, I am not the best person at it. I've learned how to run a business. We have people on our team, and they are human-centered design thinkers. And one of the things that's been really fun that we've been doing a lot of lately is we've been taking those principles and those concepts and sharing those with students and with kids. We've got a couple of schools around town.
Neat.
And they're going out and they're teaching this way of thinking. And despite us teaching it, we still internally run through this thing where people are asked to do a thing and then they do it because it's the thing that they're told to do. And I've done this myself. I don't stop and think, am I doing the thing because we said we were going to do this because we sold it? Or are we selling a thing because that's the thing that we sell? As opposed to, are we stepping back and are we listening to the problem that the client is bringing us? And if the client is bringing us a problem to say, I want to sign 10 more new cases every month. And then we go and say, you know what, you should let us write 10 blogs for you. And then they say, well, and I can get 10 blogs somewhere else. You say, well, we write ours really well. Who cares? How is that getting us new clients? And then what are you going to do to solve for that? And that's where I think thinking through that strategy comes in. And, one of the things that I've had to take a step back and revisit is how much effort are we putting into just local search, on behalf of our clients. And so when I looked at that and did a deep dive from a conversation I had with, oddly enough, the client of ours that brought me to your conference in the first place, I thought, we're not spending the energy on that we should. And it's not that hard. And we spun that up and we started doing it again, because when we looked at it, we saw that one of the areas that he got most of his phone calls from was from Google Local. And we're sitting there looking at web traffic and looking at how many pages they view and how long we spend on the page.
Yeah.
And so I need to constantly remind myself all the time, because that is a low level lift. Take ownership of your Google My Business, populate it, add photos, add videos, post to it once in a while, and you're going to outrank your competitors.
100%. So we had a meeting this summer. So our mastermind groups were in here.
Yeah.
We had a great Nalini Prasad at Blue Shark came and spoke to our group for an hour. And we went and made 4 changes to our Google My Business profile, if that's what they call it this month.
Right.
And bammo. And so one of the points she made was, just got to kind of check in every couple of weeks with Google and see a couple of things. One is they roll out these tests. They don't roll them all out across the country all at the same time.
Yeah.
But you just have to be constantly looking, or at least periodically looking, or having somebody look for you to see, oh, hey, there's a new box back here on the user side.
Yeah.
What's that box for? Oh, let's fill it in with something. And automatically, like, the leads that we were getting the next month went up. That we attributed to that because we've got some tracking and stuff. Yeah. So I think that's really important. But here's the other thing, because I think this is an advantage for you too, is most of the good marketing, sales, and customer experience ideas don't originate in legal, of course.
Right.
And they originate in other industries. And you have this whole portfolio over here.
Yeah.
And we were talking before we went live about an acquisition. So you've had this whole sort of product research development. And so you all are able to see how these big, giant, nationally branded companies thinking about things and now bringing that to legal, because I think and it's always been critical for me ever since I ran into Dan Kenny. It's like, look outside of legal, find what the guy down the street running a bagel bakery is doing really well. Ask yourself, how can I steal that idea and import it over here? So yes, at our conference last month, we had a great presentation on Google Local. And I think people that pay attention and go and at least look at it. Like, number one is go look at it. Or have your web team. Go look at it.
Go look at it. It's such an easy lift. It doesn't require expertise. There are services that you can buy for $100 a year, and they'll populate, your exact address across 150 different websites. And just doing that is great. We use a couple. We use SEMrush is kind of one of our primaries, but Moz Local has it too. And it's like $250 a year, and you enter it once and then it populates everywhere. But you touched on 2 things that I want to circle back on. You mentioned Nalini over at Blue Shark. Nalini's a friend of ours. We talk about our problems. We talk about the things that we're facing, organizationally. I talked with Seth, at the conferences. Guy Sakalakis, I'm sorry, SEMrush. Sorry, Guy Sakalakis. We can edit that, please do. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced the last name. I just always call him Guy. But there is a network of people that work in this space, and they show up at a lot of the conferences, and we know each other and we respect each other. And it was really funny when you're trying to validate, again, the first conference that I went to was the one that you were talking about, the vultures, the vultures in the space that are out there. We run into so much noise, especially now with AI and everybody claiming to be an AI expert. You have to have that social affirmation and understanding that these people work in the industry and they know each other and they hold each other accountable. And so as I was sitting down going through my LinkedIn today, I see a notification popped up and Guy mentioned me. And I thought, okay, I wonder what this is about. And I scroll over and there's a giant picture of me doing a presentation that he posted.
Yeah.
Me doing a presentation at Steve Gersten's Advocacy 360 out in Las Vegas. And he did a write up and he said nice things, about me. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, number one, I did not expect to see a picture of myself that I didn't post, or that the company didn't post on LinkedIn, but he spent his time talking about that. And I have so much respect for the work that he does because I'm familiar with it. And so I think that's one way to validate, I think there's a lot of good companies that are out there that are doing good work in this space. I think he's a great thought leader and he does great work. I've known Seth and Nalini for years and we have good relationships with each other. We're not trying to throw each other under the bus. But quoting these things, talk to us, talk to the group, because there's opportunity there. And then the other is, we made a choice to keep our area of focus specialized, but not so specialized that we're not getting external inputs. And so when we made this acquisition, I wanted it from the market research side because I wanted to be able to do more market research on the legal side and where we work in financial services. So we focused in highly regulated industries. Part of the reason is because we have to buy that insurance anyways, because it's a requirement for these big companies. Because we have that protection. But what it lets us do is it lets us glean tactics and tools from those other industries and apply them, within legal. And it helps prevent us from getting too overly siloed. And I know like Seth over at Blue Shark that, they've done similar. They've gone into the medical space. I think they have a few other areas that they're going into. They do it with a team that can focus and give it enough energy and focus so they can understand the industry, but then they can cross between the teams and bring those ideas. And I love that. I think it makes a ton of sense.
You also made a great point just a moment ago, talking about Guy and Seth and Nalini, is that I think many people don't realize that at the top leaders are all collaborating.
Yeah.
Like we actually see the world as big, the opportunities as growing, and we don't see the world as a zero-sum pie that you're competing against. And people are often surprised to hear that even in our Great Legal Marketing groups, we have mastermind members who are personal injury lawyers in Northern Virginia in those groups with us, where we share just about everything and they share everything with us. And so that's a mind grace thing that I just think at a lot of typical like lawyer conventions at the local level, state level, on the regional level, like there's nobody is collaborating. If you're in the same practice area space, that guy over there, that gal over there, they're competitors and we have to beat them. So good for you. Go ahead.
So we would have paid you and would have joined a mastermind group if you had one for marketers, because, again, from that first conference I went to, I thought, well, that would be a great idea.
Yeah.
And a few years later, once we got a little bit of traction, we started to grow, reached out to Seth, reached out to a couple of guys, I think from Big Voodoo, Chad Dudley at Dudley DeBrazier, and then Mickey Love, who runs the advertising agency that he runs. Yeah, we were meeting up one to three times a year. And where we could, we'd try to coalesce at a conference. We'd rent a room and we'd all sit around the table and talk about what are we doing, what's working, what's not working, how are we growing. And man, we don't have the geographic boundaries. We do compete. And there are times that we've had a presentation and pitch up to somebody and they have too. I don't care. We're going to win some, we're going to lose some, but who else are you going to talk to about this stuff that knows the depths that we know, so to make ourselves better? It's great conversations. Chad does great work across the board. I mean, this consulting work I think is outstanding, and then the people he plugs into, but you just get this brain trust. And then I replicated it locally with other businesses that are not the same as what we do, but other people that are running kind of progressive ideas in the way that they run their management. And we meet quarterly and we share those ideas. And it works.
Again, you've just given another great strategy that any lawyer, so any lawyers listening to this, yes, there are mastermind groups you can join, you can pay for. There's all sorts of really good stuff. But at your local level, why don't you just start one? So when I started my practice 26 years ago and I had left a firm, I just said to all of my PI friends, my PI plaintiff friends / competitors, let's buy pizza. Let's sit down once a month back then. Let's just talk about, this is pre-internet really. Let's talk about adjusters. Let's talk about strategies. What do you know? Talk about judges and defense lawyers. And it's the simplest thing to do. And in this world of everything is on Zoom and whatever, there's, shamefully, or it is a shame that there's not so much in person. Let's sit down and just chat about business. And so what you're doing on a local level is fabulous. We call it like cross-breeding or, because we're all dealing with human beings.
Hey guys, this is Ben. If you like what you've been hearing on this podcast, not just the marketing and practice building strategies, but the philosophy of the art of living your best life parts, you should know that my son Brian and I have built a tribe of like-minded lawyers who are living lives of their own design and creating tremendous value for the world within the structure of a law practice. We invite you to join us at the only membership organization for entrepreneurial lawyers that is run by 2 full-time practicing attorneys. Check us out greatlegalmarketing.com.
So that's interesting. You've given us a hint now of, because I was going to kind of ask you predictions for 2024, Chip, but you've given us a real hint as to the direction you think, sort of, we would call it like technical digital marketing and then strategic digital marketing. What else are you kind of hearing about? Yes, people are paying attention to AI.
Yeah.
I think more and more lawyers are showing up on media like TikTok. I'll tell you something really funny.
Yeah.
So 2 months ago, I had like 17 followers on TikTok, but I went to a conference where one of the things they were showing is how you can be an interesting character on TikTok. So we're doing a lot of
That's awesome.
But if you remember, Chip, so I remember like 25 or maybe 20 years ago when lawyers first started doing video to market, and they'd all get in front of their law books and they would go, "Hi, I'm Ben Watson. I'm going to tell you 3 things to do after an accident." Everything that goes around comes around. And I see these lawyers on TikTok who are standing in front of law books, Chip, going, "Here's 3 things about the bankruptcy code you probably, should know." I'm like, no, not really. That's really interesting.
Right. You got to be entertaining. But I love that you're doing it. I think that's awesome to begin with, because you just have to get out there and you just have to try.
Yes, you suck for a while, then you get 100 reps and 500 reps and you get a little bit better. Yeah.
You got to leave your ego though, because you're starting with 0 followers and that's where you're going to start and you're going to make mistakes. And that's part of that humanization. And what we found is that it's a funny stat, but we have significantly higher open rates and engagement rates on emails that we screw up. So like if we send one out, we mess it up, then we send a follow-up that we say, "Hey, we're so sorry. We got this piece of information wrong." The second email will get open 10 times as much. I mean, we don't do it on purpose, but I sometimes think we should just, hey, make a mistake, resend it. People like that human element, and people want to hire a lawyer that they can identify with, not somebody that they just would feel comfortable sitting in a room with. I'm not going to make an appointment with someone that I don't want to sit in a room with. That's going to be intimidating to me.
Right.
I want someone who understands what I've been through. And that's, my very good friend, Tom Crosley, who I know you had on your show recently, that's what makes me like doing what I do is I got to know Tom. And then even more than that, I got to sit in front of probably 100 of his clients and hear their stories. And from that, I didn't have to infer what I know about Tom. I was able to hear the care that they got, from the people that they work with. And so that makes me love doing what we do, and it really is that human element. But in terms of what's coming, I think that one, we need to hang on to that human element. Don't let ChatGPT take that away from you. Don't let the iterative stuff is interesting and it's cool. And we're going to get more and more tools to help with that, but keep that human-centered design focus. As a lawyer, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Someone's hurt. They need help. They need to be listened to. And so making yourself be approachable in your online presence, I think makes sense. On the more technical side, we're going to see a lot more API driven websites, headless CMS, I think start to really come out. Again, we're building on WordPress. We still do that, but we're exploring a couple of headless solutions, and those headless solutions, they're building your page, and your page stays largely the same when it serves up, but they're doing it on the server. So when the browser hits, it gets an instant load, and it's not loading the elements. It's loading what's already been pre-built, and it could pre-build it 27 times in a second, but when it serves, it's very fast. So I think we're going to see that. I do think we're going to see some cool things with AI and personalization, because the way that we're searching is changing so fast.
Yes.
Google and Microsoft are just pouring funds into that. And then if I were a lawyer, the first thing that I would probably take a look at doing is I would get a paid account on ChatGPT, and then I would click on create a new GPT. So that is basically saying, I want a specialized AI that knows answers to my questions. And you can use voice, you could type it, but you basically explain and introduce yourself. And so I have one that I call my assistant to my leadership team. And I've told it who I am and what I do. We have 2 companies, Orchard Insights and LaFleur Marketing. Here's the leadership at Orchard Insights. Here's the leadership at LaFleur Marketing. Here's the leadership at LaFleur One. Here's what their roles are. Chad Dudley at Dudley DeBrazier. I save that. And then I ask it things on my behalf.
And that's interesting.
So when I go into a meeting, I had a meeting, I wanted to introduce Orchard and another company who's in that same kind of insight space. And I said, hey, I'm meeting with this company and, with Orchard, take a look at what each company does and find opportunities for synergies. And it came back and it actually suggested that Rashed, who's the president of Orchard, run the meeting. So it said, I don't think that you should run this meeting. I think that Rashed should. And I think that here are some things that you could cover in the meeting. And then here's 5 ways you could integrate and create an offering that could be a saleable product. So if I run a law firm, I would explain, I run this firm. This is the type of case that we take. Here's my name. Here's the name of my assistant. Here's the name of some of the staff that support me. Here's what differentiates us, and whatever other detail you want. And then ask it to do things for you. What should I prioritize for today? Because that's going to live in its own separate chat that is not just the general chat GPT. And right now it's $20 a month.
Yeah. That's so interesting. So one of the ways we're using ChatGPT in Great Legal Marketing is, and my chief of operations his name is Calvin, and he's a nerd. Like, he's into this and has been into it before it became famous.
Yeah.
More popular. And he's saying here, he's saying to the software, I'm probably not even doing it justice describing it, but here's all of our material on newsletter marketing.
Yep.
Everything we've done.
Yep.
Digest it. What are we missing?
Yep. Yes. Yep.
What haven't you written about?
Yep. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So we have 20 years almost of accumulated material. Yeah. And thank God, we actually have 20 years of accumulated digital material. Ben was younger. That principally, I've been saying the same thing for 20 years. So that's a way to use ChatGPT. I imagine you could have it go, hey, I'm a personal injury lawyer. Look at my website.
Yeah.
What am I missing?
I do that. When we get on discovery calls, I still take a look at the site, but I just ask ChatGPT to crawl it and say, what could be done to improve this? And as of last week now, just the plus version for $20 a month, it can now browse. So, and that's one of the challenges too, is that one week it can't do something, the next week it can.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the Google local profile.
Yeah. But if you're using it and you're asking it to help you with your day, you're going to see those things as they transpire. And just to give one other example, we're talking about, teaching kids and teaching kids design thinking and doing some things like that. I've got 2 boys, 6-year-old and 8-year-old. And so every time we get asked to do something for a school or for something like that, I just say yes, because I think, man, someday my kids are going to want to do that. And if I can do that, it's super fun. So we've got a school here, West Michigan Aviation Academy, and we've had a good relationship with them. They asked us to do some stuff. And so I said, yes, I'd come there and I'd do some mock interviews for seniors. And Aaron, our contact over there, sends me this email the day of, and it was long. And I was very busy up until that time, and I didn't read through it. And then I take a peek at it and I see that I'm supposed to be there 15 or 20 minutes early, and I'm already, I should have been there when I was leaving. And so I copied that email and I pasted it into ChatGPT. I got in my car, I hit the talk to button and the app, the official app. And I said, hey, could you please tell me what I need to know for this event? And I say she because it's a female voice, but she told me everything I needed to know to be prepared. I got there 2 minutes before the thing started. I was supposed to get there 15 minutes before. I felt bad, but I was ready because she read all the detail. And when I got close, also, again, knowing I was short on time, I didn't remember what the parking instructions were. And so I hit the button and I said, remind me what the parking instructions are when I get there. And it said, come in, there's 3 visitor spaces up front by the flagpole. If those are full, a lot of kids are at KCTC, which is the trade school. By this time of the day, all the kids will have left. And the administrator also gave the okay to park in handicapped spots if you need to. I never had to read the email, and so many attorneys are so busy. If they can have their assistant loaded into ChatGPT, and of course, be careful, don't use private information. Enterprise accounts are different, but the plus for $20 a month make sure you're not entering private confidential information. But if you can have your assistant go and say, hey, copy this and make this summarize it for me, it saves so much time. It's crazy.
That's amazing. So, I had no idea that ChatGPT would browse.
Yeah. Well, and it just started. Last week.
Last couple of minutes here. So like me, you're running seemingly multiple businesses. You've got little children. You are a leader, a visionary. So I'm curious about personal habits. What do you do to keep your relationship with family great? Personal health habits.
Yep.
What do you do?
Oh man, that's all changed with some recency. So not all of it, some of it. So one, I don't work that much. I get up and I check my email. If I can get to the office by about 10, that's great. I've usually done a lot of things before I leave. And then I don't spend time in the office when I don't have something I have to do in the office.
That's good.
Yeah, I leave and I go home. And if I've got 3 hours between a meeting and I want to really focus on something, I'll go home. I've got a home office. I'm probably not going to have somebody popping in. I make sure I'm available enough for my team to be around, but I want them to see that they can work from where that makes the most sense. Some people are very productive when they're not at home. Now we have ways to measure that. We don't need to see them sitting in this. So try to set the example there. So I don't stay in the office when I don't need to be in the office or want to be. Sometimes I just want to be here because it's fun. And then I have a personal trainer. And so I work out 3 days a week now. It was 2, and she's finally convinced me to add it to 3. We're trying to walk more, do some things like that. I have a coach. I have a business coach, an executive coach that I work with. It's through Michael Chu out of Chicago. And I work with the guy, Brian Eng in LA. And that's great. I have a therapist that I go and see every other week. And I started doing that just because I know that, life is what it is and things are going to happen. And that's been such a great experience. I'm 46 and I have not ever really gone to see a therapist. And I didn't have a big catalyst moment that made me want to do it. I just have a lot of people in my office that are really vocal about mental health.
Yes.
And I thought, I'm going to start doing it because, a friend of mine, his father-in-law passed and we went to the funeral and, life is short. And so when you're going to be confronted with loss, why not have a support network so that you don't have to start from the ground up? So that's been very helpful. And then on the health side, I'm very proactive about my health. I have a great doctor. He suggested I go vegan. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's a big change. And then I tried it and it's actually not that hard. And I'm not religious about it. I'll eat fish, here and there once in a while. If I want to eat a steak, I'll eat a steak, but maybe that'll be every 3 months or so. And I've been eating mostly probably 90% vegan for the past 2 months. And I feel better than I felt in ages. So I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, good for you. Look, I think it is important. So you have business coach, therapist, it's good to have 1 or 2 people in your life who aren't your friends, who aren't your spouse, who aren't your business partners, who you can share highs and lows with and get some objective. They don't care because they're not really on your board of directors. Advice. And you can take it or leave it. But most people have no one, sadly have no one in their life, independent of their family. And sometimes families are dysfunctional. So that doesn't work real well.
And it is lonely at the top. You run an organization and you have to be careful what you say to different people on the team. If you get frustrated with somebody, you can't vent to somebody else. So you hold it in, you can bring it home, and then your spouse, your kids are going to hear about it and they don't have the context. And so, you have to have that support. And it's funny because that's where those mastermind groups have also come in so handy because they get what we're going through. And I can have an open conversation with them and not worry about it getting back to, whatever the situation, whoever the people are involved. And I get to vent without any harm done,
100%. Well, look, Chip, this has been wonderful. Folks that want to follow up and check out the company and maybe make a connection about websites again, at Ben Glass Law, within the last, 90 or 120 days, we launched our new website with your company. And it's been great. It's been a great process working with you and your team and having my CMO, Lauren, working with your team. But I'm glad that you and I, the leaders, were able to spend almost an hour chatting here. That was great. So where should they go? Where should they go to check you out?
So you can go to LaFleur.marketing. There's no .com. It's just LaFleur.marketing. That's our site. And then just a quick shout out to Laura. She's been awesome. She's been great to work with, and she is a rock star.
She's fun. Her first day at Ben Glass Law, when she started, was a sleepover with our leadership team because it was our annual 2-day offsite retreat. And so she was driving to a cabin in the woods with people she didn't really know. She listens to true crime podcasts, whether she was going to survive through the weekend. So get her to tell you that story one day.
Oh,
And
awesome.
she survived. Yeah, we love her. Yeah.
I love it.
All right, dude. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Ben. Keep doing what you're doing. I love what you're doing. You're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
If you like what you just heard on the Renegade Lawyer podcast, you may be a perfect fit for the great legal marketing community. Law firm owners across the country are becoming heroes to their families and icons in their communities. They've gone renegade by rejecting the status quo of the legal profession so they can deliver high-quality legal services coupled with top-notch customer service to clients who pay, stay, and refer. Learn more at greatlegalmarketing.com. That's greatlegalmarketing.com.